Alright, let's dive into this. It's time to really unlock the potential of what you've already got. Here's a revised version of your essay, keeping the core message intact but fine-tuning it for maximum impact and relatability. Welcome, friend. Let's talk about something real. Ever feel like you're playing a game where everyone else is just reacting while you're already mapping out the final move? That feeling isn't random. History, in my experience, consistently favors those who don't just play catch-up, but who understand the game's rhythm, the subtle hints long before anyone else. Think of the leaders who averted wars before a single shot was fired, or the entrepreneurs who foresaw market shifts when everyone else was riding high on the wave. And here's the thing, that capacity, that knowing, isn't some mystical gift. It's a muscle you've developed, and it probably freaks people out a bit. How did you see that coming? They ask, a mix of awe and frustration in their voice. Call it pattern recognition, predictive processing, whatever. The truth is, it's your unique way of connecting the dots, and it can be intimidating. Imagine you're playing chess, but your opponent feels like you're responding to their thoughts before they've even moved a piece. It's not about luck. It's about a level of precision that makes them question their own strategy. They'll replay your actions, trying to dissect your thinking, searching for the trick. It's as if you're spoiling the ending of a movie they paid full price for. But here's the kicker. It's not just about predicting what will happen. It's about influencing the direction. You become the screenwriter, subtly rewriting the narrative while they're still figuring out their lines. So let's unpack why your calculated steps feel like prophecy to those watching. By the end of this, you'll not only understand why they're asking, "How did you know?" but also understand that the slight fear in their eyes is actually a sign of respect. Because deep down, you'll always know. First, you navigate life like someone who's already glimpsed the final scene. Most people live on edge, constantly bracing for the unexpected. They're always reacting, scrambling when things go south, second-guessing themselves when decisions arise, and ultimately crumbling under the pressure of uncertainty. But you carry yourself differently. You don't seem rushed, frantic, or easily surprised. You step forward as if you know the play, as if you've rehearsed your role. It's not that you have a crystal ball. It's that you've stopped treating life as a guessing game. When you've weathered enough storms, you start to recognize the signs before the downpour. You learn to sense betrayal before the words are even spoken. You discern which opportunities are genuine and which are elaborate setups designed to waste your time. To outsiders, you may appear prophetic, but to you it's merely experience transformed into instinct. This is why you don't react to chaos the way they anticipate. You remain calm amidst the storm because to you the chaos merely confirms what you've already prepared for. And that, my friend, unnerves people, stripping them of the illusion of power they thought they had over you. They thrive on catching others off guard, on gaining the upper hand through shock and surprise. But you effortlessly disarm them because their grand gestures feel like reruns of a show you've already watched. Their betrayals, their lies, their sudden shifts, you recognize them as recycled strategies. And when you don't flinch, when you don't scramble, when you don't give them the reaction they expect, it shatters their confidence. The truth is, your composure isn't just about survival. It's a strategy in itself. When you act as if you know the outcome, you subtly influence the situation in your favor. People start to second-guess themselves, doubting their own plans, wondering if you know something they don't. That hesitation alone tilts the balance in your direction. You navigate life as if the final destination is already etched in your mind, and as a result, you keep pulling ahead while they're still trying to figure out the starting point. Second, you don't just sense energy, you decipher intent. Most people react only to the surface, the words, the actions, the visible gestures. They hear the statements, observe the body language, and take them at face value. But you've cultivated the ability through hard experience or inherent sharpness to look beyond the performance. You catch the pauses between sentences, the subtle shifts in tone that betray discomfort, the way someone's eyes reveal their truth before their lips even finish speaking. That's why your responses often come before they even realize they've exposed themselves. They're perplexed because you're not reacting to their actions. You're reacting to their underlying intentions. And that's what makes people feel uneasy around you, because intention is the one thing they can't fully mask. Masks can be worn, stories can be polished, and actions can be rehearsed, but intention leaks through like smoke under a locked door. And you've trained yourself to notice that smoke long before the fire erupts. Someone may be smiling, but you detect the hunger in their eyes. Someone may offer assistance, but you sense the hidden strings attached. To the world, your ability may appear as intuition, but in truth, it's simply perception at a level most are too distracted to reach. That's why your timing often feels supernatural. You decline invitations just before they turn sour. You distance yourself from circles right before betrayal surfaces. You reject opportunities others would eagerly jump at, only for those same opportunities to crumble later on. People wonder how you always avoid disaster, but it isn't luck. You move with the understanding that words and appearances are often decoys. The real blueprint of a person lies in their intentions, and you've mastered the art of reading it. The unsettling part for others is that they can't control you. They can't manipulate you with sweet talk or sway you with false promises. You see through the sales pitch, the flattery, and the performance before they even finish delivering it. And once someone knows you can read their intentions, it completely changes the power dynamic. They stop feeling like they're dealing with an equal and start feeling like they're standing in front of a mirror that reveals too much. That's why every move you make unnerves them. It's not just that you guessed right. It's that you answered the very truth they were desperately trying to conceal. Third, their patterns betray them long before they act. That's the part that leaves people feeling unsettled by you. They believe their choices are spontaneous, that their schemes are unpredictable. But you've witnessed enough repetition in human behavior to know that most people are just running loops. They give themselves away without realizing it, the way they speak when they're lying, the little rituals they perform when they're hiding something, the overconfidence that precedes a betrayal. These are the breadcrumbs they leave behind, and you catch every single one. To others, it may seem like you're guessing. In reality, you're simply paying attention at a depth they're either too careless or too arrogant to reach. What most people call intuition is often just memory sharpened by experience. You've been through enough to notice how patterns repeat themselves in different faces, different voices, different situations. The betrayal from one person mirrors the betrayal from another. The arrogance of one manipulator echoes the arrogance of the last. Over time, you begin to see that there are no new tricks, only recycled versions of the same tactics. So when someone tries to move against you, you sense their next step long before they even realize they're telegraphing it. This frustrates people because they think they are being clever. They think their secrets are airtight, their strategies flawless, their timing perfect. But while they're patting themselves on the back, you've already written the ending of their script in your mind. You don't need them to announce their move. You've already spotted the signature they left behind in their behavior. And when you act as though you knew all along, it shakes their confidence. They start doubting themselves, wondering if you're somehow connected to information they can't access, when in truth you've just disciplined yourself to notice what they ignore. This level of perception makes people wary of you because it strips them of their element of surprise. They can't catch you off guard the way they do with others. They can't lure you in the same way they manipulate the unsuspecting. Every pattern they lean on, every predictable response they expect crumbles in front of you. That's why people keep asking, "How did you know?" They don't realize that in their haste to play games, they revealed the entire playbook and you were already paying close enough attention to memorize it. Fourth, you're not afraid to act without validation, and that alone makes you unpredictable to everyone around you. Most people wait for signals, reassurance, or approval before taking a step. They hesitate because they fear being wrong in front of others, because they depend on the nods, the pats on the back, or the approval of a crowd to legitimize their choices. You don't operate that way. You move independently, relying on your own judgment, your own timing, and your own understanding of the situation. That freedom terrifies people because it's a form of power they don't know how to counter. When you act without validation, you bypass the expected. You don't wait for someone else to validate the move that only you can see is necessary. This means decisions happen faster around you. Changes come earlier than expected, and opportunities are seized before others even notice them. People around you are left scrambling, trying to catch up, trying to guess why you made the choice before anyone else even weighed in. It looks like you have a sixth sense, but it's actually just clarity combined with courage, the kind of courage most are too timid to practice. Your independence also reshapes the environment itself. When you make a move without seeking approval, it forces others to follow or adjust, effectively redefining the group's direction without a single word from you. You don't need validation, and by acting alone, you often end up setting the standard that everyone else gravitates toward. This is why they feel unsettled. The one who doesn't need validation ends up influencing the decisions of those who think they're in control. It's not arrogance, it's precision. You've learned that waiting for the crowd or seeking approval slows action and exposes weakness. The people around you may see hesitation and doubt in their own steps, but you see clarity and momentum in yours. That difference makes every move you make seem intentional, confident, and almost untouchable. By stepping forward without waiting for permission, you show that real power doesn't come from approval. It comes from decisiveness. That's why your moves are always ahead and why everyone else keeps asking, "How did you know Yoda?" Fifth, you recognize the trap because you've lived through worse. That's a kind of vision most people will never understand. They assume your ability to avoid danger is cleverness, luck, or some mysterious intuition. The truth is far simpler and far more powerful. You've walked through storms they can't even imagine, survived betrayals that could have destroyed a lesser person, and faced challenges so harsh they would have broken anyone relying on luck alone. When someone sets a trap in front of you, it doesn't scare you, it looks familiar. You recognize the patterns because you've encountered similar schemes, only more vicious, more intricate, more personal in the past. Because of that experience, what seems like danger to others appears as a simple obstacle to you. You sidestep with precision, not because you're guessing where the pitfalls lie, but because your history has already taught you how to navigate them. The betrayal that would have blindsided someone else is immediately recognizable to you as just another version of a problem you've solved before. Their threats feel smaller, their manipulations less intimidating, and their strategies, no matter how elaborate, are nothing more than recycled reruns to someone who has already lived through the originals. This unsettles people because they expect fear to slow you down, hesitation to hold you back, or panic to cloud your judgment. None of it happens. You move calmly, deliberately, almost effortlessly because your body and mind are trained by survival, not theory. You know the cost of being careless, and you've learned to act in ways that prevent paying it again. That makes your responses sharp, accurate, and unshakable, and it makes others question how you always seem to be one step ahead. The deeper truth is that surviving worse doesn't just make you aware of traps, it transforms your relationship with them. You no longer fear them, you anticipate them. You see the intent behind every move, the hidden strings and the weak points that others miss. While they're sweating over the setup, you've already moved around it. That ease, that confidence, that foresight is what keeps them asking, "How did you know?" It's not magic, it's experience turned into instinct, and it makes you untouchable in ways they can't even comprehend. Sixth, you treat silence like a weapon, not an absence. That alone unnerves people more than almost anything else you could do. Most see silence as a void, a pause, a gap that needs filling. They panic in it, rushing to speak, overcompensate, or reveal more than they intended just to break the quiet. You, however, understand that silence is a tool, a strategy, and a form of control. Every pause, every delay, every moment you choose not to react is deliberate. It's not emptiness. It's a calculated move that shifts the balance of power without you ever raising your voice. People around you never know what you're thinking. That uncertainty is disorienting. They wonder if you're indifferent, if you're confused, or if you're plotting something far bigger than they realize. And in truth, all of it is correct. You're simultaneously ignoring their noise, dismantling their assumptions, and reshaping the conversation in a way that only you understand. While they're panicking, you're analyzing, recalculating, and positioning yourself for maximum advantage. Your silence forces them to reveal themselves. Their words slip, their intentions surface, and their confidence falters, all because they can't read what you're doing. This is why silence becomes more powerful than any argument, any confrontation, any rebuttal. People are conditioned to respond to action, to noise, to displays of emotion. You bypass all of that. Your silence doesn't just speak, it moves. It creates pressure without making a sound. Every pause you take forces them to confront their own vulnerability. Every withheld reaction is a mirror showing them what they tried to hide. And because they don't understand it, they begin to fear it. They fear that whatever you're not saying is far more dangerous than what you would say. They fear that your quietness is a prelude, a blueprint for action they cannot anticipate. They can't figure out if you're ignoring them or dismantling them. The truth is, it's both, and that combination makes you untouchable. While they scramble for control, you operate from a position they can't even see. That's why your silence isn't empty. It's lethal, it's deliberate, it's a weapon, and they can't defend themselves against it. So you've read this far. Now let's make this real. What's one thing you can do today to start applying these principles? So then hit that subscribe button. This journey of understanding and mastering your unique edge is just beginning. Give this video a like. Show your support for insights that challenge the status quo. Drop a comment below. Share your thoughts, experiences, or any questions you have. Let's build a community of perceptive and strategic thinkers. Share this with someone. Know someone who needs to hear this message. Spread the word and empower them to see their own potential. Your support helps these powerful insights reach more people who are ready to elevate their awareness. Go out there and own your power. You already know. Already know. Already know. Greetings, the illuminated ones. Don't let the figures in your bank account deceive you. Heaven has already marked you as individuals of exceptional worth. Prepare yourselves, for some of you are about to transition from financial uncertainty to substantial wealth transfers unfolding with a speed that may seem almost unreal. But be warned, sudden prosperity is not merely a cascade of commas and celebrations. It brings with it spiritual challenges, psychological complexities, and an entirely new dimension of temptation. Reflect on this. What if the perceived delay wasn't a denial, but a carefully orchestrated divine plan? The sobering reality is that over 70% of lottery winners face bankruptcy or financial ruin within 5 years. Why? Not because wealth itself is inherently corrupting, but because they were never adequately equipped to manage such abundance. But that will not be your narrative, chosen ones. This is not solely about financial gain. It's about achieving alignment, embracing your divine assignment, and experiencing exponential growth. God has been meticulously refining your inner strength, preparing you for a destiny far grander than mere material success. He's not just preparing to bestow wealth upon you, he's preparing to entrust you with it. And yes, your transformation will undoubtedly bewilder some. One moment they may disregard you, the next they'll be frantically searching for ways to emulate wealth without betraying their envy. So if you've been experiencing an unusual sense of calm lately, if your spirit has been quietly anticipating the unfamiliar, if you found yourself checking your bank balance despite knowing it's limited, consider this message your affirmation. You're not just gaining wealth. You're becoming a powerful testament to God's transformative power in human form. Let's delve deeper into this. First, understand that sudden wealth is a spiritual trial, disguised as a material blessing. It appears as a reward, yet it serves as a profound examination of your character and values. When the funds finally arrive, when your accounts are overflowing, and when you no longer have to fret about daily expenses, that's when the true test begins. In times of scarcity, your options are limited, forcing you to be cautious, deliberate, and prayerful. But as opportunities expand, so do the temptations. And this is where many falter. Sudden wealth doesn't just provide luxury, it grants you power, and power is a mirror reflecting your deepest motivations, insecurities, and long-held desires for validation. These suppressed emotions will surface, and if you lack a solid foundation, if your identity remains tied to past deprivations, wealth will control you rather than serve you. Some may mistakenly believe that God bestows wealth to flaunt His favor, but that's a limited understanding. God grants wealth to assess your stewardship, not to inflate your ego. It's not a trophy to be displayed, but a tool to be utilized. If you haven't healed from past wounds, you'll wield that tool recklessly, harming yourself and others in the process. That's why God often permits a period of delay before sudden wealth arrives, not as a punishment, but as preparation. He needs to cleanse you of greed, eradicate insecurity, and fortify your spirit against the allure of ego. For wealth in the hands of a broken person is akin to fire in the hands of someone who doesn't respect its power. It doesn't purify, it destroys. Thus, the arrival of sudden wealth should be met with preparation more than celebration. It will reveal your true passions, deepest fears, most trusted confidants, and unresolved wounds. Many will eagerly seek the breakthrough, but lament the exposure that accompanies it. However, the chosen ones understand the divine purpose. If God is entrusting you with this level of abundance, it signifies that He has already assessed your soul and deemed you ready. Second, money doesn't alter your essence. It amplifies your inherent qualities. Money simply provides a platform for the real you to express itself. This is why sudden wealth poses such a danger to those who haven't undergone inner transformation. When wealth materializes, it doesn't arrive alone. It brings influence, attention, and access, all of which amplify your inner self. If you harbored bitterness before, you'll become reckless. If you felt insecure, you'll crave validation from strangers. If you secretly desired power, you'll use money to manipulate others. Money doesn't create these traits, it exposes them. People often say, once I have money, I'll finally be happy. But if happiness was absent before, wealth will only accentuate the emptiness, because wealth isn't a solution, it's a spotlight. It will illuminate everything you've avoided facing. Suddenly you'll confront your habits, fears, addictions, and thirst for applause. If you haven't mastered your impulses, you'll deceive yourself into thinking you're simply enjoying life, when in reality you're drowning in distractions. This explains why many chosen ones endure seasons of lack before their breakthrough. It's not punishment, but training. God grants you time to liberate yourself from ego trauma and unhealthy patterns. He observes your actions when no one is watching. For if you are faithful with little, you can be trusted with more. However, if you're already using your last resources to impress those who don't care, what will you do with millions? Wealth will amplify your name. But if your character is underdeveloped, the spotlight will feel like a curse. You'll question the sincerity of those who claim to care and second-guess every opportunity. If you lack a firm foundation, you'll attempt to become who others expect rather than embracing your true self. The preparation season is crucial. It's where God shapes the kind of person who can handle blessings without being broken by them. Money is neutral. It merely magnifies. When you're chosen, God desires your wisdom to be more prominent than your wealth, for wisdom is what sustains it. Third, the delay served as divine protection against premature exposure. Many assume that unfulfilled desires are destined to remain unfulfilled. But when it comes to chosen ones and sudden wealth, delay often represents divine safeguarding. You weren't being ignored or forgotten. You were being shielded. If wealth had arrived before you were fully prepared, you might have entrusted it to undeserving individuals. You might have poured your blessings into leaky containers, people who only knew how to take, not reciprocate. The delay wasn't a rejection. It was God saying, not while you're still surrounded by the wrong influences. Wealth attracts opportunists. People change quickly when money enters the picture. Friends become competitors and supporters become manipulators. When you're emotionally vulnerable, you might confuse loyalty with mere history. Longevity doesn't guarantee that someone is meant to accompany you on your journey. So God allowed time to reveal true intentions. He allowed people to expose their true nature. He used betrayal to teach discernment, not out of cruelty, but because he knew that premature wealth could lead to sabotage. Chosen ones are designed for extraordinary purposes. You're not just receiving money. You're gaining influence, impact, and unprecedented favor. That power cannot fall into reckless hands, even if that reckless person is who you once were. Therefore, he slowed the process down. He guided you into seasons of solitude. He removed false companions, compelled you to confront your wounds, and taught you to stand on your own spiritually. If you didn't learn to protect your peace in times of scarcity, you'd be overwhelmed by abundance. The silence in your life was God creating distance between you and those who would have depleted your energy. You mistook them for supporters, but they were merely spectators. You believed they were with you, but they were waiting to capitalize on your success. God had to release them before he released the flow of wealth. When it finally arrives, you'll understand the reason for the delay. You'll realize that those who remained never needed your wealth to value your worth. Fourth, the impending wealth is for funding kingdom-level assignments, not personal indulgence. The wealth destined for you is not solely for comfort. It is intrinsically linked to your divine calling. When God blesses a chosen one with sudden financial increase, it's never arbitrary. It's not intended for frivolous spending or self-aggrandizement. Such thinking is short-sighted. You are being entrusted with something sacred, divine currency, not for flexing, but for building. Not for impressing, but for impacting. The wealth coming your way is meant to finance something far grander than your personal lifestyle. It is meant to fund your legacy. Chosen ones not only live well, they build well. They plant seeds that blossom into movements. They address problems that others neglect. They amplify voices that carry truth. They cultivate safety, healing, and advancement for others. That's why the delay felt so prolonged. God wasn't merely preparing you to receive, He was preparing you to manage. If wealth reaches someone before they comprehend their purpose, they squander it on fleeting validation. But if it reaches someone who has been refined, they multiply it for generations. God is strategic. He bestows wealth according to assignment. He is not blessing you randomly. He is intentionally resourcing you because where you are headed, you'll need more than faith. You'll need finances. Purpose demands power, and in this world, wealth carries weight. You're about to wield both. That's why He stripped you of the need for external validation. He didn't want your vision to be overshadowed by performance. He wanted your heart to remain pure. So when the blessing arrives, you'll know precisely how to use it. This is not a season for ostentation. It is a season to build, to fund ideas that transform lives, to support liberation, to uplift the marginalized, and to answer silent prayers whispered by those who have nothing to offer in return. That is genuine kingdom work. When the wealth lands in your hands, it will feel divinely ordained, because it will be more than just money. It will be evidence that God found you worthy to carry answers the world desperately needs. Fifth, you are currently under quiet observation by financial gatekeepers. Unbeknownst to you, your life is being carefully examined, not by adversaries, but by financial gatekeepers, individuals with the power to unlock doors that money alone cannot access. Banks, strategic investors, business leaders, silent benefactors, and even divine allies you've yet to meet are watching how you conduct yourself in this season of scarcity. They are less impressed by superficial displays and more interested in your faith, discipline, patience, and integrity under pressure. They're evaluating your character, not just your potential. They want to see how you respond when the spotlight is off. Do you uphold ethical standards even when no one is watching? Are you generous even when it requires sacrifice? Are you building with purpose or merely chasing fleeting trends? These gatekeepers have encountered talent before. They've seen charm, skill, and charisma. What they rarely encounter is spiritual maturity combined with financial humility. That's what distinguishes you. They are meticulously documenting their observations. Some are in positions to provide funding. Others are connected to systems that can expedite your vision. Some are prayerfully considering whom to align with. Others are being divinely guided to invest in someone who has been tested and refined. You're not waiting on money. Money is awaiting your readiness. Chosen ones attract not only resources, but also divine timing. You've remained faithful during hardship. You've upheld honesty when compromise seemed easier. You've built steadily even without recognition. That's why the right people are now taking notice, not because you begged or compromised your values, but because there's something sacred in your efforts, something authentic that cannot be bought or faked. When the door opens, it will seem sudden to others, but not to you. You'll recognize that it was earned through quiet dedication. While others were performing, you were preparing, and that preparation qualifies you not only to receive wealth, but to manage it with wisdom, power, and grace. Maintain your excellence. The gatekeepers are closer than you realize. Sixth, wealth will trigger unresolved issues in people who feel you've bypassed the process. The arrival of sudden wealth in your life is not just a blessing. It's a catalyst for those who thought they understood you, especially those who believed they were ahead. To them, your breakthrough feels unjust, not because you've done anything wrong, but because they assumed you'd remain in a subordinate position. You were the underdog, the one they underestimated, the one they mocked in private. Therefore, when God elevates you publicly, it threatens their sense of control. People who haven't healed from past wounds don't see your success as progress. They see it as a personal attack. It reminds them of their unresolved issues, unfulfilled goals, and the excuses they've used to justify their inaction. Your rise forces them to confront the possibility that favor cannot be earned through pride, status, or connections, but originates from something deeper, something they've neglected to cultivate. They won't just envy what you have. They'll question why you specifically were chosen. Some will attribute your success to luck. Others will minimize your journey. They'll dismiss it as a fluke, a coincidence, or imply that you're engaging in unethical practices. Acknowledging that your breakthrough was earned through quiet obedience, personal sacrifice, and years of misunderstanding would force them to confront their wasted opportunities, a truth they cannot bear. It's not just your wealth, it's the reflection it casts. You become a living mirror, and what they see in that mirror is unflattering, but that's the price of divine elevation. Your radiance will make some uncomfortable, not because it's offensive, but because it's truthful. It reveals that God promotes based on purpose, not popularity. When He chooses someone to bear wealth, He examines hearts, not resumes. Don't waste time trying to validate your worth. Let your life speak for itself. Let them assume what they will. What they perceive as luck, heaven recognizes as legacy. Your wealth isn't about revenge. It's about restoring what was overlooked, dismissed, and belittled. You're not just rich in resources, you're rich in resilience, a quality they'll never comprehend. Seventh, the real challenge will be navigating the isolation that wealth creates. One of the most challenging aspects of sudden wealth is the sense of isolation it can create. Everyone discusses the success, the lifestyle, and the elevation, but few acknowledge the isolation. As you rise higher, the quieter it becomes, not because you've changed, but because those around you have. Money shifts your status, relationships, boundaries, levels of trust, and environment. People you once cherished may begin to regard you differently. Some will demand immediate access to your new blessings. Others will guilt-trip you for not giving more, doing more, or remaining where they left you. You may be accused of forgetting your roots when you're simply safeguarding your peace. You'll discern who was connected to your journey and who was truly connected to your soul, and that circle may be smaller than you anticipated. Wealth reveals expectations. Those who once cheered for you may become envious. Some may become passive-aggressive. Some may sever ties without warning. Others may feign support while secretly hoping for your downfall. It becomes difficult to distinguish genuine connections from superficial ones. The resulting loneliness can be overwhelming, feeling like a punishment. However, it's actually a form of protection. God knows that not everyone can accompany you on your journey. Some were only meant to be part of your survival story. If they had access to your abundance, they would have depleted your resources. That's why the circle shrinks, why the conversation shifts, and why the silence grows louder. It's not rejection, it's refinement. The isolation is not a curse, but a sacred space where you can hear God's guidance, make wise decisions, and move with clarity. If you're not grounded in purpose, that quiet can feel suffocating. But if you're rooted, you'll recognize it as a sign of being set apart, not pushed aside. Not everyone is meant to walk with royalty. Some are only meant to observe from afar. Eighth, wealth will attract deceptive contracts disguised as business opportunities. Sudden wealth brings opportunities and traps often concealed as blessings. These may appear as partnerships, investments, and once-in-a-lifetime offers. However, not every investor is a divine connection. Some are agents sent to disrupt, derail, or destroy your calling. If you're not spiritually alert, you may unknowingly align with individuals who were never meant to be part of your future. Satan also provides funding, especially when he sees you supporting healing, truth restoration, or anything that challenges his agenda. The enemy is strategic. If he cannot stop the blessing, he will try to contaminate it. He sends collaborators who appear trustworthy but are spiritually toxic individuals who can mimic your language, mirror your vision, and appeal to your emotions. Beneath the surface lies control, manipulation, and hidden agendas. These are not mere business deals, they're demonic contracts, and breaking them requires more than legal action. Discernment becomes crucial during financial breakthroughs. You cannot base decisions solely on numbers. You must understand the spiritual implications. Who is providing the funding? What are their values? What are the long-term consequences? Some agreements may promise quick success, but tie your name to systems you were meant to dismantle. Some may offer platforms but silence your voice. Some partners may invest publicly while draining you privately. Remember that not every open door is divinely ordained. Some are designed to deceive but are supported by darkness. You were called to build something pure, holy, and liberating. Your resources must be clean. Your partnerships must be aligned, and your decisions must be rooted in peace, not pressure. Don't hesitate to walk away from seemingly lucrative opportunities that feel wrong. Don't ignore red flags simply because the financial rewards are significant. Wealth gained through bondage is not a blessing, it's a trap. Protect your mission. Pray before you commit and trust that God will never ask you to compromise your calling to fulfill His promises. Ninth, the first million isn't the blessing, it's the call to arms. Many perceive their first million as the destination, believing that it will bring ease and contentment. However, for the chosen ones, that financial milestone is a doorway marking the start of a new level of spiritual warfare. It's not a time for relaxation, it's a time for preparedness. Wealth exposes you, attracting both attention and opposition. You will face legal challenges, unexpected audits, and manipulative contracts designed to ensnare you. You will face financial attacks, unforeseen losses, and deceptive advisors. Ancestral forces that kept your lineage in cycles of poverty, addiction, and failure will rise up. They were assigned to keep wealth out of your family, and you have broken that pattern. This triggers warfare that extends beyond your personal struggles. You are fighting for your legacy now. Every decision carries weight. Your discernment must be sharper than ever in every conversation, every offer, and every connection. Not everyone who applauds your success wants you to continue winning. Some just want to get close enough to distract, drain, or detour you. The first million is not just a testament to your resilience. It's a confirmation that you've entered a new battlefield. You must be prepared to protect what you've built, to say no, even when it's difficult, and to distance yourself from anything that threatens your peace, values, or vision. You haven't just become wealthy. You've become visible, and your battles are now public, but so is God's protection. Remain grounded and wise, for the true blessing is not the money. It's the strength, strategy, and clarity you gain through the fight. 10th, you're being positioned to impact nations, not just impress peers. The wealth you're about to receive is not about competition. It's about your commission. You're not being elevated to show off. You're being elevated to give. God didn't just choose you to be wealthy. He chose you to be responsible. You're not simply receiving money. You're being entrusted with becoming a conduit for divine provision, someone who can transform resources into revival. The wealth coming to you is not random, it's strategically allocated. It's intended to reach overlooked, broken, and neglected places. It's meant to rebuild devastated communities, rescue gifted individuals who are hidden, fund powerful ministries, and dismantle oppressive systems. This isn't about increasing your status, it's about expanding your reach. You're being positioned to bless on a scale that even governments cannot achieve. So to wrap it all up, remember this: the wealth that's on its way to you isn't just about a bigger bank account. It's about stepping into a bigger version of yourself, a version that's ready to use abundance to make a real, lasting difference in the world. It's about aligning with your divine purpose and understanding that this prosperity is a powerful tool for good. Now, I'd love to hear from you what resonated with you the most. Do you have any questions or experiences you'd like to share? Please leave a comment below. Let's start a conversation and support each other on this incredible journey. And if you found this message helpful, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future insights and encouragement. I'm excited to continue exploring these topics with you. Blessings to you all, to you all, to you all, to you all. Welcome, you chosen few. Understand this: when the divine architect redirects your path, it's not always a reprimand, but a shield, a sacred redirection. There's a hush settling in the atmosphere, a stillness not of tranquility, but of expectation, a divine caesura. Perhaps at first the signs eluded you, yet now they emerge, undeniable: abrupt departures, hushed exits, fractured bonds, and those who once derided you now see your life as a template for their own aspirations. Let's be honest, they were unprepared for the revelation that you could triumph without manipulation, while they face setbacks without any foreshadowing. And here's the concealed truth: when the universe places individuals in reflective solitude, it's not merely to pass the time, but to confront their own reflections. As their world unravels, a poignant truth emerges: you were never the impediment, but the harbinger. Psychological research reveals that veiled envy often manifests as jest or indifference. That insincere chuckle at your ascent is, scientifically speaking, a mask for their own insecurities. Now they are not merely witnessing your triumphs. They are compelled to confront what they forfeited with each step you take towards success. This isn't about personal vendettas, but divine orchestration. Their trajectory halted, their fortunes dwindled, their vigor dissipated. Why? Because the one they hastily judged is now publicly celebrated. Prepare yourselves. This is more than a message. It's a spiritual dissection. You are about to witness the profound reasons why they remain in divine suspension while your victory is broadcast across the heavens. Let's delve into the revelation they sought to conceal. Firstly, the divine hand did not remove them. It merely suspended them in time, allowing you to eclipse their shadow. They weren't banished, but rather frozen, spiritually anchored in a moment as your life continued its forward march. This is the element they failed to foresee. They believed that by disregarding, ridiculing, or abandoning you, they could break your spirit. Instead, they found themselves ensnared not in a dramatic spectacle, but in a gradual, insidious stagnation, a sense of futility where every endeavor meets resistance. Meanwhile, the very individual they presumed buried is now flourishing. The divine did not impose punishment. It merely curtailed their access, not as retribution, but as a safeguard for you. Had they remained, they would have tainted your blessings, contaminating your harvest with their arrogant, subtle envy and controlling tendencies. Thus, the divine not only elevated you, but also suspended them, not eradicated, but simply benched. As you navigated trials, evolving into your destined self, they remained confined to their repetitive cycles, engaging in hollow performances, devoid of genuine power, spiritually muted. They deluded themselves into thinking they were advancing, yet nothing truly progressed. They persisted in the same routines, clinging to the same flawed perspectives, trapped in the same broken relationships, entangled in the same recycled dramas, devoid of growth, devoid of advancement, merely seeking distractions. This is the hallmark of divine suspension. It isn't always accompanied by thunder and lightning. Sometimes it's a subtle stagnation infiltrating every aspect of their existence. Astonishingly, many remain oblivious to their predicament. Yet the irony remains: they witnessed your downfall and presumed it was the end. Unbeknownst to them, during your darkest hours, you were undergoing spiritual refinement, healing, praying, and ascending. You weren't stuck. You were being molded. In contrast, they were placed on hold. It appeared as freedom, but it was merely delay. Now your reputation soars, your radiance shines brilliantly, and they realize they stagnated while the one they underestimated surpassed the life they once controlled. This isn't vengeance. This is the divine declaring, "You shall not impede their progress and partake of their glory." They are not absent. They are simply confined to a timeline that no longer accommodates you. Secondly, they are not only losing possessions, but also forfeiting access to you permanently. They are not merely losing employment, friendships, finances, or opportunities. They are losing you, an absence that cannot be filled. Initially, they dismissed its significance, presuming that severing ties, disrespecting, or engaging in manipulative games would allow them to return when the storm subsided, offering hollow apologies or feigning ignorance. Yet they failed to anticipate the divine severing their access irrevocably. When one mistreats a chosen soul, they do not merely lose a connection, but also relinquish a protective shield. You were more than a mere friend, sibling, partner, or presence. You were a spiritual covering. Your prayers shielded them, your presence elevated their spirits, your divine blessing opened doors they were unaware existed. Now devoid of this covering, they are exposed. They reveled in their perceived victory when they abandoned you, shifted allegiances, mocked your suffering, and gossiped behind your back. They misconstrued your silence as weakness when in reality it signified alignment. It was you stepping aside so that the divine could intervene and address what your grace once concealed. Now they are denied access to what they once undervalued, not out of your bitterness or resentment, but because you have surpassed their level of consciousness. Betrayal no longer resonates with you. Dysfunction no longer binds you. Above all, you do not return to what you have purged. The old version of you they sought to reach is gone, and its absence echoes in their lives, not overwhelmingly, but subtly. Unanswered calls, missed invitations, blessings that evade them, opportunities that mysteriously vanish. The changes are subtle at first, until they realize that the favor they once basked in was not mere luck but proximity to the divinely appointed. Now they are spiritually exiled. This is not punishment but divine separation. A line has been drawn. They cannot harm you and retain the privileges. They cannot sabotage your heart and still feed off your radiance. The access they have lost was their greatest asset, and their final encounter with it. Thirdly, their misfortunes mirror the attacks they launched against you. Everything they are losing now is linked to what they attempted to seize from you. This is a truth they will never acknowledge publicly, but deeply sense within themselves. Life is reflecting their intentions back at them. It's terrifying. The very snares they set for you they now stumble into. The falsehoods they spread about you now circulate about them. The doors they slammed in your face now shut before them. This isn't mere happenstance. It's spiritual justice executing its purpose, exposing concealed hands. They assumed their actions against you were clandestine. The jealousy, the sabotage, the whisper campaigns, the superficial support that morphed into outright betrayal. They believed no one noticed, but the heavens keep a record. And now the energy they released returns to them, not because you wished harm, not because you retaliated, but because divine law ensures balance. When you were under siege, they found amusement. They relished in witnessing your downfall. They bonded with others over your anguish. Some even smiled, feigning support while secretly rooting against you. The truth is, they weren't intimidated by your possessions. They were intimidated by your essence, your resilience, your authenticity, your ability to rise again. Now they witness their world crumbling and remain perplexed. Doors that once opened effortlessly now resist. Connections wither. People distance themselves as they once turned others against you. It isn't a coincidence. It's alignment. What they have sown, they now reap in abundance. They were ill-prepared for the repercussions because they underestimated the impact of their actions. You were expected to endure silently and fade away. Instead, you healed, you ascended. You progressed without seeking revenge, which alone reversed the tide. Their losses are not random, they are spiritual echoes, a direct reflection of every weapon formed that failed to prosper but was returned to sender not by your hand but by divine decree. Fourthly, the divine did not punish them, it allowed them to exist in the absence of your grace. They perceived themselves as powerful, assured, and impervious when in reality they basked in your light, mistaking it for their own radiance. That explains their arrogance, entitlement, and sense of superiority as they reaped the benefits of the grace bestowed upon your life without recognition. You prayed for them, you shielded them in silence, you brought serenity to chaotic environments, yet they dared to mock the very essence that prevented their world from collapsing. The divine did not smite them or curse them, it merely removed you, and upon your departure everything began to wither, not dramatically but steadily, gradually, subtly. Relationships felt strained, their momentum waned. They struggled to comprehend why their energy felt off, why their plans faltered, why people were no longer drawn to them as before. It's because they were not the source, but were operating on spiritual credit linked to your presence, a credit that has now expired. This is not punishment. It's the consequence of mishandling favor. They credited themselves for the ambiance of the room, failing to recognize that it was your spirit anchoring the atmosphere. They mistook your gentleness for weakness, your kindness for submission, your loyalty for low value. What they truly possessed was access to divine covering through you, a covering they have now forfeited. What they now experience is not karma, but the emptiness left behind by departing grace. Grace possesses weight. It binds. It holds judgment at bay. It conceals what should have been exposed, and in dishonoring you, they forfeited the very shield they never realized they had. The divine did not need to act dramatically. It simply withdrew with you, and as it did, everything built on false confidence began to crumble. Now they inhabit a barren place, not because they are cursed, but because they underestimated the blessing they had access to, the peace, the favor, the ease they once enjoyed. It was not mere luck, but divine anointing, and now they learn in silence and struggle what life feels like without the grace they mocked while they possessed it. Fifthly, they perceived you as an easy target, failing to recognize that you were a mirror reflecting their inner darkness. They believed manipulating you would be effortless, assuming you were naive, gentle, or unaware. You did not retaliate. You did not expose them. You did not stoop to their level. Thus, in their eyes, you were easy prey. However, they failed to grasp that your silence was not weakness but revelation, because the entire time they were attacking you, they were reacting to themselves. You weren't the problem. You were the mirror. Your presence reflected something they did not want to confront: a quiet confidence, purity, inner peace, spiritual clarity. It brought their own imperfections to the surface, and instead of addressing their wounds, they projected them onto you. That is why the gossip started. That is why the fake competition began. That is why they turned every little thing into a power play. You did nothing to them. You just existed in a way that revealed how far they had strayed from their authenticity. Their insecurities could not remain hidden in your presence. Their pride could not stand next to your humility. Their lies dissolved when your truth entered, and that is why they tried to break you. Because your light amplified their darkness. Your healing made their dysfunction appear glaring. Your peace made their chaos unbearable. You never competed with them, but they made it a competition because deep down they knew they were not built like you. They copied your style, stole your ideas, talked about you behind your back while secretly studying you. But nothing they tried worked because you were not operating from ego. You were aligned with purpose, and purpose is inimitable. They were unprepared for what your energy would expose. They desired the spotlight but could not handle the reflection. You weren't targeted because you were weak. You became the target because your presence made their mask fall off. Every time they looked at you, they saw the version of themselves they had buried. That is why they attacked, not because you threatened their success, but because you highlighted their spiritual failure, and now they are left with their own reflection and no one left to blame. Sixthly, you were their test and they failed spectacularly. You did not enter their lives demanding or brashly. You came with good intentions, open energy, and a pure heart. You were not there to impress or control. You were sent as a blessing. Whether they knew it or not, they were on trial the moment they crossed paths with you. It was not a visible trial, but a divine test disguised as everyday life. How would they treat someone who carried the divine light without the spotlight? They failed spectacularly, not because they were ignorant, but because they thought it inconsequential. They mistook your kindness for low status, your humility for weakness, your silence for lack of value. They failed to recognize that you were the type of person people pray to encounter but rarely value when they do. You only sought honesty, respect, and sincerity. Instead, they offered manipulation, mockery, and power games. This was never about religion. It was about character integrity and how people behave when they believe no one is watching, unaware that the heavens recorded everything. It was about how they handled your name in your absence. How they smiled while plotting, how they exploited your love, loyalty, and presence, then discarded them as disposable. What they failed to realize is that you were the assignment they were graded on, not because you needed validation, but because they needed evaluation. You were introduced into their lives as an opportunity to uplift, bless, and align them. Instead of receiving you, they sought to destroy you. Now that failure manifests everywhere, not because the divine is wrathful, but because it is just. One cannot mistreat a divine appointment and expect continued blessings. Their failure was not merely personal, but spiritual. That's why their relationships are strained, their minds restless, and their energy depleted. It is all tied to their failure to recognize the test you represented. They did not merely lose access to a person. They lost the opportunity to evolve through love. That is a failure that haunts in ways no punishment ever could. Seventhly, they mocked the process but cannot replicate the result. They scoffed at the isolation, the spiritual discipline, the silent nights where you were being broken and rebuilt. They interpreted your absence as weakness. They believed you were declining when you were actually aligning. As you cried out to the divine, they mocked with their audience, convinced you had lost everything. Unbeknownst to them, you were in a process where divine power manifests from pain. They mocked. Your silence, your lifestyle changes your boundaries, your spiritual hunger. They did not understand, so they ridiculed. Now they crave what you possess: the radiance, peace, clarity, favor, attention, open doors. They are attempting to replicate the outcome without comprehending the cost. One cannot simply imitate fruit. You did not reach your current state by skipping steps. You battled your inner demons. You forgave the unrepentant. You remained loyal when you had every reason to abandon ship. You sacrificed when no one was watching. That kind of transformation does not come from motivational quotes or image crafting. It comes from daily self-denial. They are attempting to perform what you have lived. They are mimicking your style, imitating your message, but it falls flat because divine anointing is not an outfit, but a brand forged in fire. The fire they avoided is the same fire that makes you untouchable. They desire your results, but not your wilderness. They desire your wisdom, but not your wounds. They desire your radiance, but not your shadows. So they engage in spiritual theatrics, hoping to attract the divine, but nothing stirs. No power, no anointing, no results, because heaven does not respond to performance. It responds to process. They laughed prematurely. They failed to recognize that the process they mocked was the same process the divine used to qualify you. Now they are attempting to skip what you survived, and they remain stagnant because anointing cannot be borrowed, imitated, or purchased. It must be earned in the trenches. Eighthly, your growth did not humiliate them, it exposed their stagnation. You never sought to diminish others. You grew quietly, intentionally, authentically. You transmuted pain into wisdom. You transformed setbacks into structure. You did not broadcast your every move or seek validation. You persisted. Now, without utterance, your progress speaks volumes. It is not that you are excelling that bothers them. It is that they remain where they were when they attempted to hold you back, still trapped in the same cycles, surrounded by the same chaos, relying on the same tricks. Your transformation creates an undeniable contrast. You did the inner work, the spiritual work, the healing work. You confronted what they avoided. You released what they clung to. While they preserved appearances, you transformed. Because you evolved, your growth unintentionally exposes their lack of progress. This is what they cannot bear. It is one thing to witness someone's success, but another to realize they triumphed in an environment used as an excuse to remain stuck. Your success, however understated, highlights their excuses, delays, and refusal to break free from limiting habits. You serve as a reminder of what they could have achieved but chose not to. It is not arrogance, not bragging. You live in alignment, and that alignment is deafening to those who prioritize comfort over calling. To them, your elevation feels like an affront, not because you disrespected them, but because your presence reminds them they have not grown past who they were when you met them. You did not embarrass them. Life did. Life revealed that while you were becoming more, they were choosing less. And now even your silence disrupts, not because you strive to be superior, but because you became what they feared becoming. They struggle to accept that you are not racing but walking. They are upset at the distance they created by standing still. Ninthly, divine timeout is not merely judgment. It is mercy before wrath. Divine timeout is not just about retribution. It is restraint. The divine is saying, before unleashing the full weight of justice, allow you to look in the mirror. When individuals mistreat someone divinely sent, when they lie, manipulate, betray, or mock someone carrying divine purpose, a period of silence ensues. It is not silence from the injured party, but from the divine. That silence is not peace, but mercy on borrowed time. They are in spiritual isolation, but they do not perceive it. They believe they are experiencing a rough patch. They believe they are fatigued. They believe people are behaving differently. They believe opportunities are delayed. They fail to recognize that heaven has paused them. Their name is not advancing. Their prayers feel blocked. Their peace has vanished because the divine disconnected them, not to destroy but to awaken. This was their opportunity to repent, reflect, and confront their behavior. They were to realize that their actions were not merely wrong but misaligned with the divine. Instead of introspection, they embraced more delusion, ego, and deflection. They doubled down on lies to conceal previous falsehoods. They convinced themselves that you were the problem, that their actions were justified, that they had the right. Now they are building an identity atop what they should repent for. That is when mercy begins to wane. Divine mercy is not limitless. It operates within a time frame, a window, and when that window closes, judgment commences, not out of divine cruelty, but out of divine justice. Mercy is extended to those willing to awaken. So in essence, what we've uncovered here isn't about gloating or celebrating someone else's perceived downfall. It's about recognizing the profound ways the universe protects, elevates, and redirects us when we stay true to our path, even when faced with negativity and adversity. It's a reminder that divine alignment often means that those who try to hinder our journey end up revealing their own limitations and insecurities, leading to a natural separation that ultimately serves everyone's highest good. It's a powerful testament to the fact that living authentically with integrity and purpose will always lead to growth and blessings, even if it looks different than we initially expected. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Have you experienced something similar in your own life? Do you have any questions about the concepts we discussed? Please share your insights, experiences, or questions in the comments below. Let's start a conversation and learn from each other. And if this resonated with you and you want to explore more topics like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That way you won't miss out on future discussions and insights designed to help you navigate your spiritual journey and live a more authentic and fulfilling life. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to connecting with you in the comments, Greetings, you illuminated souls. Picture this: the most deafening sound imaginable is the silence you create upon your exit. Let that profound truth resonate within you, because here's a stark reality check. The vast majority of individuals remain blissfully unaware of the extent to which you're holding their world together. That is, until the day your unwavering presence is no longer there to provide that unwavering support. Not until your customary chair sits empty, your insightful voice remains unheard, and your vibrant energy is notably absent, do they finally awaken to the realization that you weren't merely a passive component in their lives. You were in fact the indispensable adhesive, the guiding compass, the quietly resolute force that tirelessly prevented everything from spiraling into chaotic disarray. Psychologists have meticulously documented a rather unsettling phenomenon within the intricate tapestry of group dynamics. The removal of just one stabilizing figure has the potential to trigger a complete disintegration of order in a mere matter of 72 hours. You were never just a participant. You were the bedrock, the steadfast foundation upon which they unknowingly constructed their entire edifice, all without ever explicitly acknowledging it. But here's where the cosmic irony reveals itself. While you remained ever present, they may have dismissed you as being overly analytical, excessively serious, or somehow lacking in significance. Then with your sudden and unexpected departure, the lights begin to flicker ominously. The morning coffee mysteriously loses its familiar flavor, and Brenda from accounting inexplicably finds herself weeping inconsolably in the restroom. It's in that moment of unsettling disruption that the realization hits them with the force of a lightning strike. Oh no! They whisper in collective dismay. It was them who were silently preventing this whole operation from devolving into a full-blown war zone. And for those chosen ones among us, this profound dynamic transcends the mundane confines of the workplace or the familial sphere. It is in essence spiritual architecture in its purest form. You are quite literally a living, breathing pillar in the elaborate structure of people's lives. Remove that crucial pillar and the entire edifice emits a mournful groan, visibly tilts precariously, and in some particularly dire scenarios completely collapses upon itself. Not because you deliberately cultivated a dependence upon yourself, but because they in their unwitting reliance built their very sense of balance upon your inherent stability, and remained oblivious to this crucial support system until it vanished into thin air. Therefore today we shall delve into the unvarnished truth. We'll explore the tangible consequences that unfold when a chosen one disappears, and the underlying reasons why everything around them begins to crumble with the precariousness of a Jenga tower clutched within the unsteady hands of a nervous toddler. Number 1, you were the unheralded axis that tirelessly kept the surrounding chaos firmly in check. During your tenure, things exuded an aura of relative calm, operated with notable smoothness, and maintained a consistently predictable rhythm. Yet lamentably, no one ever paused to ponder the underlying source of this tranquility. They passively assumed that the pervasive peace was an inherent facet of the environment, that the delicate balance was self-regulating, and that the prevailing harmony existed autonomously. The genuine truth, however, is that it wasn't the external environment dictating the order, it was you. You were the unseen axis around which everything quietly revolved, even if nobody ever explicitly acknowledged your pivotal role. You tirelessly absorbed simmering tensions before they could erupt into explosive confrontations, subtly redirected misspent energies without drawing undue attention to yourself, and diligently safeguarded fragile connections from irrevocably snapping. This was never a matter of mere happenstance. It was a sustained, unseen labor that you carried out without seeking recognition or fanfare. And because you executed these tasks with such seamless grace and unwavering efficiency, they mistakenly interpreted it as the natural state of affairs. Upon your departure, the long dormant fault lines that were always lurking beneath the surface begin to dramatically widen. The previously subtle passive-aggressive remarks take on a sharper, more biting edge. Disagreements ignite with increased rapidity, and the reservoirs of patience that everyone thought they possessed inexplicably evaporate into thin air. It's in that moment of collective unraveling that they belatedly realize that the tranquil atmosphere they once so readily enjoyed was not emanating from within themselves. It was in fact stemming directly from the steady gravitational pull that you brought into any given space. Devoid of your anchoring presence, the unspoken frictions are no longer effectively contained, and the minor irritations they once brushed off with ease now metastasize into full-blown conflicts. You weren't merely present as ornamentation or to fulfill the parameters of your job description. You were the essential stabilizing weight that diligently prevented things from tilting too far in any one precarious direction. You possessed the unique insight to prevent individuals from uttering regrettable words, the adeptness to steer conversations away from spiraling into unproductive arguments, and the innate ability to ensure that everyone felt genuinely heard before they felt compelled to act out in potentially damaging ways. Without your constant vigilance, there is no guiding, invisible hand firmly gripping the steering wheel. People impulsively make sharper turns, recklessly bumping into one another, and hastily blaming the treacherous conditions of the road, never once realizing that the trusted driver they had unwittingly relied upon is no longer at the helm. The most profoundly unsettling aspect of this revelation is that most individuals will stubbornly refuse to admit this reality to you while you're still around. They'll erroneously assume that you are effortlessly replaceable, that the system operates independently of your contributions, and that nothing of consequence will fundamentally alter should you decide to move on. But life possesses an uncanny knack for exposing the underlying truth. The instant you vanish, the very atmosphere undergoes a perceptible shift, the familiar stability falters noticeably, and the inherent fragility of their meticulously constructed setup is brutally exposed for all to see. It's at that critical juncture that they finally come to terms with the fact that it wasn't the system itself that was holding everything together. It was a singular, steadfast presence that they woefully underestimated until it was irreparably gone. And by then it's far too late to recapture what they've lost. Number 2, you were the indispensable translator between disparate worlds. You possessed a rare capacity for understanding individuals that extended far beyond the limitations of their spoken words. You effortlessly discerned the underlying meaning concealed within pregnant pauses, the unadulterated truth subtly conveyed in a seemingly innocuous tone, and the genuine emotion deftly masked beneath carefully constructed sentences. You could readily pick up on that which remained unsaid, and that extraordinary skill empowered you to serve as the crucial bridge between individuals who seemed perpetually unable to forge meaningful connections. You were adept at translating unspoken feelings into a language that others could comprehend even when they remained blissfully ignorant of your invaluable intervention. That's precisely why misunderstandings rarely escalated into full-blown crises when you were around. You adroitly intercepted them before they had the opportunity to sprout teeth and inflict lasting damage. When you depart, that silent translation service abruptly ceases. Words begin to land with unintended harshness. Intentions are routinely misconstrued, and seemingly insignificant comments balloon into monumental problems, because no one else is adept at catching the subtle signals that you once effortlessly noticed. The very same conversations that could have been swiftly resolved with your mere presence now devolve into days of protracted cold shoulders, subtle displays of passive-aggressive behavior, or even outright emotionally charged arguments. Individuals begin to reflexively assume the worst about one another because, devoid of your insightful interpretation, they're forced to rely exclusively on their own personal filters. And those filters are often tragically clouded by rampant ego-crippling insecurity or deep-seated unhealed wounds from the past. You weren't merely connecting sentences, you were forging connections between hearts. You were uniquely attuned to hear frustration and recognize it for the underlying fear that it truly was, or to detect anger and perceive it as a mask for profound disappointment. You instinctively knew when to temper someone's words to prevent them from coming across as needlessly harsh, and when to inject additional clarity into a statement to ensure that no one felt dismissed or invalidated. That caliber of sophisticated communication skill doesn't originate from training manuals or corporate workshops. It is at its core a spiritual gift. It emanates from possessing a highly attuned spirit, cultivating deep empathy, and wielding a natural aptitude for reading beneath superficial surfaces. Absent your guiding presence, the chasm between individuals widens at an alarming rate. Assumptions begin to erect impenetrable walls. The subtle nuances of a message take precedence over its underlying meaning, and feelings are needlessly hurt over matters that were never deliberately intended to be offensive. Bridges begin to crumble and collapse because the one individual who innately understood how to maintain their structural integrity has quietly walked away. They may well attempt to replace you with someone else, but replacing a translator of souls isn't akin to the straightforward task of hiring a new employee. It's not a position that can be filled through conventional means. It's a role that exists solely because of who you are at your core. And when you're gone, regardless of the intensity of their efforts, they simply cannot replicate the uniquely profound way that you connected worlds that were never designed to comprehend one another without your skillful intervention. Number 3, you were the unwavering moral anchor in a vast sea of pervasive compromise. You never felt the need to lecture others about ethical conduct or to ceaselessly point out the demarcation between right and wrong. Your life in its entirety served as a potent testament to your deeply held convictions. You consistently made decisions that quietly established a high standard, and without actively soliciting the role, you became the moral linchpin in environments where concession and accommodation were the prevailing norms. People may have resisted explicitly acknowledging it, but your very presence compelled them to pause and carefully consider their actions before crossing certain ethical boundaries. They might have engaged in reckless behavior around others, but around you there existed an unspoken awareness that certain actions were simply deemed unacceptable. This wasn't rooted in fear of reprisal. It was born out of a deep respect for the inherent integrity that you embodied. When you disappear, that crucial anchor is irrevocably gone. The gradual drift into murky moral gray areas accelerates into a rapid and precipitous slide. Actions that once felt morally questionable begin to acquire an air of normalcy, and behaviors that would have been diligently kept in check now occur brazenly in the open. The very nature of conversations undergoes a transformation. Decisions are made with less ethical consideration, and before long the entire atmosphere has subtly but profoundly shifted. Without a tangible individual embodying a clear and consistent ethical standard, it becomes progressively easier for people to excuse their own transgressions and rationalize behaviors that they once instinctively recognized as being fundamentally wrong. Ethical boundaries blur and dissolve not because individuals have undergone a sudden and radical transformation in their core beliefs, but because the person who consistently reminded them of their higher potential no longer stands steadfastly among them. You were never perfect, but your unwavering consistency served as a powerful silent influence. You didn't compromise your values to appease the prevailing sentiment or to conveniently suit the demands of the moment. That deeply ingrained consistency created a form of invisible accountability. Others may have rolled their eyes at you in private, but they invariably measured themselves against the principles that you so effortlessly embodied. Without that consistent point of reference, there remains nothing to measure against, save for the fleeting and often unreliable whims of their own personal impulses. And impulses unrestrained possess an uncanny ability to erode stability far more rapidly than anyone initially anticipates. What amplifies the potency of this dynamic is the fact that you likely never intentionally set out to serve as anyone's moral compass. You were simply and authentically living out the principles that you fervently believed in. That raw authenticity was a rare and precious commodity, and it carried substantial weight. It served to ground spaces that would have otherwise aimlessly drifted into chaotic disarray. With your absence, people don't merely lose a friend, a colleague, or a family member. They lose a tangible point of reference. They lose the living embodiment of proof that it is indeed possible to live a principled life in a world that often seems to actively reward those who are willing to take expedient shortcuts. And once that vital proof is no longer readily available, the subsequent decline may initially appear subtle, but it is in its essence relentless. Eventually, they inevitably find themselves in a place that they once vehemently swore they would never inhabit, left to ponder how the situation deteriorated to such a lamentable extent. And only then does the painful realization fully dawn on them. It all commenced the moment you ceased to be present to keep them securely anchored to their better selves. Number 4, you were the quiet, unassuming energy source that continuously fueled the group. You were so much more than just another body occupying space within a room. You were the vital pulse that tirelessly kept everything moving forward with unwavering momentum. Your words of heartfelt encouragement didn't merely elicit pleasant feelings. They reignited within individuals a renewed willingness to persevere in the face of adversity. Your boundless creativity didn't merely inject a touch of flair. It sparked ingenious solutions during those times when the group encountered seemingly insurmountable dead ends. And your diligent behind-the-scenes efforts functioned as the unseen gears that meticulously kept the entire machine operating smoothly. Even though the vast majority of individuals never paused to take notice, you were never ostentatious about your contributions, but without your consistent input, the pervasive momentum that everyone passively took for granted would never have materialized in the first place. Upon your departure, that crucial energy source is abruptly severed. Initially, the disruption may go unnoticed. A project may still reach its intended completion, a scheduled meeting may still take place as planned, and an organized event may still unfold smoothly. However, before long, the subtle yet profound shift becomes undeniably clear. The collective ideas possess a palpable lack of inspiration. The initial excitement rapidly dissipates, the unifying sense of camaraderie noticeably weakens, and tasks that once sparked genuine enthusiasm now feel mechanical, as though they are being executed solely out of a sense of obligation rather than authentic drive. It's not that the group becomes entirely dysfunctional without you, it's that it fundamentally lacks the capacity to truly thrive without your presence. And that state of thriving was the defining difference that you effortlessly introduced, all without ever explicitly announcing it. You possessed an uncanny ability to fuel those around you without ever making it about yourself. A brief word of encouragement precisely when it was needed most, a subtle adjustment to allow someone else's work to truly shine, a fresh and innovative idea injected into the conversation at precisely the opportune moment. All of these seemingly small contributions aggregated to something far greater than anyone initially realized. You possessed an innate capacity to make individuals feel as though their contributions genuinely mattered, and that instilled sense of value served to keep them consistently engaged. Absent that empowering influence, they gradually begin to contribute less and less because no one else has truly mastered the subtle art of making them feel both seen and profoundly capable. The painful truth is that numerous environments unreservedly thrive upon unseen labor. The sort of tireless contributions that cannot be adequately captured within formal job descriptions or measured on quantitative performance charts. You unequivocally embodied that ideal. You were the individual who effortlessly lightened the atmosphere, the one who instilled within others the courage to embrace calculated risks, and the one who quietly intervened to rectify situations that were on the verge of collapsing into utter chaos. And when that caliber of presence is abruptly removed, the entire group collectively feels the void, even if they struggle to fully articulate the precise nature of the loss. They may not be able to pinpoint precisely why things suddenly feel heavier and more burdensome, but deep down at a visceral level, they intuitively understand. It's because the vital heartbeat they had unwittingly come to depend upon is no longer there to sustain them. Number 5, you were the unflinching mirror that they could not bear to confront without your steadfast presence. Simply being in proximity to you had a way of gradually stripping away people's carefully constructed and fiercely defended illusions. You never needed to openly expose anyone, publicly call them out on their shortcomings, or aggressively point fingers. You simply lived in a way that made pretense and artificiality exceedingly difficult to sustain. Your unwavering consistency, your unyielding honesty, and your firm refusal to feign authenticity acted like an unflinching mirror reflecting back to others the unadulterated truth about themselves. For some individuals, this stark reflection served as a source of genuine inspiration. For others, it induced a palpable sense of discomfort. Regardless of the specific reaction, your raw authenticity invariably created a subtle pressure for them to confront that which was genuinely real instead of perpetually hiding behind a fabricated image. Upon your sudden disappearance, that revealing mirror is irrevocably gone. The uncomfortable weight of self-awareness that they used to feel in your presence gradually begins to dissipate. They are now free to comfortably slip back into old self-defeating patterns of behavior without that nagging inner voice constantly reminding them that they possess the innate capacity to be so much better. They can readily don their carefully constructed masks with renewed ease because no one is subtly reminding them that those comforting facades are still nothing more than mere masks. In the short term, they might even experience a superficial sense of relief, the temporary relief derived from skillfully avoiding the unadulterated truth. But in the long term, they forfeit the very thing that was consistently propelling them toward genuine personal growth. You never forcibly imposed change upon anyone. You simply and authentically embodied it in your daily life. You exemplified what it looked like to stand unyieldingly firm in your deeply held values, to acknowledge your inherent flaws without allowing them to define your entire identity, and to present the exact same authentic persona in every setting. That rare confluence of traits is remarkably confronting because it leaves no room for the convenient excuse of, well, everybody does it. In your presence, individuals could vividly see the wide gulf that separated who they presently were and who they were ultimately destined to become. And some deeply buried part of them genuinely longed to close that seemingly insurmountable gap, even if they never explicitly voiced that desire aloud. Lacking your unwavering presence, the seductive temptation to actively avoid rigorous self-reflection grows increasingly powerful. They gradually cease to measure themselves against objective truth and begin to measure themselves against whatever fleeting impulses happen to elicit the most immediate gratification. The insidious drift away from continuous growth commences, and it can potentially take years for them to fully grasp the extent of the territory they have inadvertently lost. By then, the invaluable opportunity they once possessed the chance to continuously grow in the illuminating presence of someone who quietly challenged them simply by existing is irrevocably squandered. And perhaps the most sobering aspect of this reality is that they may never fully comprehend that losing you didn't merely cost them a valuable relationship. It ultimately deprived them of a far clearer, more objective view of themselves. Number 6. You are the steadfast stabilizer in a delicate web of fragile egos. You possessed an uncanny ability to deftly navigate the complex terrain of people's inherent pride without inadvertently trampling upon it. You could intuitively sense when someone was on the cusp of feeling threatened, when a seemingly innocuous offhand comment was poised to ignite something far more volatile, and when a seemingly minor disagreement was threatening to escalate into a spiraling, out-of-control conflict. You possessed the innate capacity to step in with grace and tact. Not as an overbearing referee brandishing a loud whistle, but as a quiet, unassuming presence that subtly redirected the potentially destructive energy before it reached its explosive threshold. You innately understood that in a room populated by fragile egos, the smallest perceived slight, a misunderstood tone, a carelessly misplaced word, or a subjective sense of having been overlooked had the potential to ignite a conflagration that would prove exceedingly difficult to extinguish. And you wielded the rare and profoundly valuable skill of preventing that initial ignition without making anyone feel diminished or invalidated. Upon your sudden departure, the subtle but crucial equilibrium that you so diligently maintained vanishes with you. The meticulous adjustments you used to make are conspicuously absent. As a result, the friction that was once effectively contained begins to relentlessly build. Devoid of your calming presence, petty rivalries begin to sprout teeth and inflict genuine damage. Individuals become acutely sensitive to one another's words and actions, instinctively interpreting every interaction through the skewed lens of suspicion. What would have been readily smoothed over in a matter of mere seconds with your adept intervention now festers unaddressed for days or even weeks. The group's collective focus shifts from unified collaboration to subtly competing with one another or actively safeguarding their own vulnerable positions. Your conspicuous absence starkly exposes the sheer volume of crucial work you were diligently performing without ever receiving due credit. You weren't merely keeping the peace. You were actively preserving valuable relationships. You were skillfully ensuring that diverse egos could coexist harmoniously long enough to allow for genuine progress to transpire. You possess the innate diplomatic skill to allow someone to claim a minor victory in order to preserve their damaged pride, while simultaneously ensuring that the overarching objectives remained steadfastly on track. Without that subtle but crucial intervention, individuals begin to meticulously keep score in all the wrong ways. Minor offenses feel like intentional personal attacks, and a single poorly handled conversation has the capacity to unravel months of painstaking cooperation. This isn't the type of role that anyone can effortlessly step into and successfully fulfill, because it's not solely about formal authority or designated position. It's about finely honed emotional intelligence, impeccable timing, and the demonstration of genuine, unwavering respect for others even when they are particularly challenging to deal with. That's precisely why when you're gone, the subsequent decline isn't gradual. It's startlingly swift. Tensions that once dissolved readily now explode with unrestrained force, and relationships that appeared unshakable suddenly fracture and irrevocably break. And by the time they fully realize that you were the one diligently preventing the entire delicate web from collapsing in upon itself, it's already far too tangled to salvage. Number 7, you were the soul that infused the space with a palpable sense of vibrant life. You didn't merely enter a room, you actively transformed it. Your very presence carried an inherent warmth that compelled individuals to breathe a little easier, without even being consciously aware of the change. This wasn't about commanding attention with a booming voice or consistently positioning yourself at the center of the activity. It was about the unique and uplifting spirit that you so effortlessly exuded. You possessed an uncanny ability to make spaces feel lighter, calmer, and fundamentally more human. Individuals could readily relax in your presence because something inherent within your energy conveyed to them that they were safe to be their authentic selves. That was the type of profound comfort that cannot be superficially manufactured. It stemmed directly from who you are at your very core. Upon your sudden departure, that vital sense of comfort vanishes as well. The very same rooms that you once graced with your presence suddenly feel noticeably different, heavier, colder, and strangely hollow. Individuals may struggle to pinpoint the underlying cause, but at a visceral level they instinctively sense the palpable shift. Conversations no longer flow with ease, and spontaneity and laughter inexplicably sound strained and somewhat forced. The space undeniably feels as though it's missing a crucial heartbeat. And that's because the welcoming atmosphere they so readily enjoyed wasn't derived from the furniture, the carefully calibrated lighting, or even the individuals occupying the space. It was radiating directly from you. This is precisely why your absence leaves such a deep and lasting impression. You weren't merely filling a chair. You were carrying an invisible light that touched and subtly influenced everyone within the room. Even individuals who barely spoke to you were nonetheless affected by your quiet radiance. You never consciously tried to make people feel comfortable. It transpired organically because you weren't performing for an audience. You were simply and authentically present. And that genuine presence carried tremendous weight in the best way possible. The unvarnished truth is that environments are invariably shaped by the unique spirits that inhabit them. Some individuals enter a room and instinctively bring a palpable sense of tension, others an undercurrent of subtle chaos. You effortlessly brought peace without inducing dullness, warmth without artificial pretense, and genuine joy without contrived effort. That harmonious combination of traits is exceptionally rare and, quite frankly, irreplaceable. Lacking that essential confluence, the very atmosphere within the space imperceptibly shifts in a manner that no one seems quite capable of rectifying. They may introduce new personnel, initiate novel activities, or even completely rearrange the physical space, but it simply won't elicit the same emotional resonance. The palpable loss of that inherent aliveness is not merely observed, it's deeply felt. Individuals may refrain from openly discussing it, but deep down they all intuitively understand that something profoundly important is undeniably missing, and eventually it dawns on them with stunning clarity. It wasn't the room itself that made them feel at home. It was you. Number 8, you were the hidden map that they unconsciously followed without fully realizing it. Devoid of conscious awareness, you were subtly but consistently shaping the way that the people around you engaged in thinking, decision-making, and overall action. You never felt the need to explicitly announce that you were assuming a leadership role. Your daily life quietly demonstrated it for you. The manner in which you deftly handled daunting challenges, the critical choices you consistently made under duress, and the steadfast consistency with which you upheld your core values, all of these attributes served as a silent but powerful guide for others to emulate. They might have steadfastly resisted openly acknowledging it, but they often reflexively measured their own actions against your exemplary conduct. You served as the unspoken point of reference that they instinctively turned to in their minds whenever they felt uncertain about which course of action to pursue. Upon your sudden disappearance, that reliable compass is irrevocably gone. The clear direction they once readily found by observing your choices is no longer readily accessible, and the resulting consequences are typically almost immediate. They begin to take ill-advised steps that they never would have even contemplated had they still had your example to guide them. Some of those missteps lead to entirely unnecessary mistakes, damaged relationships, or valuable opportunities needlessly squandered. It's not that they lack the inherent capacity to think autonomously. It's that they never fully appreciated the extent to which their own thinking was securely anchored by your unwavering example. Devoid of that essential anchor, they begin to drift aimlessly. This subtle influence was never intended to be a form of overt control. You weren't consciously attempting to manage or dictate anyone's personal life. You were simply and authentically living in consistent alignment with your own deeply held principles. And that inherent alignment served as a silent but powerful roadmap for others to follow. You vividly demonstrated that it was indeed possible to conduct business with integrity and still consistently achieve tangible results, that patience could ultimately lead to significant breakthroughs, and that steadfast consistency wasn't merely a sign of boring predictability. It was a potent source of long-term power. Individuals absorb these invaluable lessons simply by being in your sphere of influence. But once you're no longer there, they are inevitably left to contend solely with their own, often unreliable impulses and the potentially misguided voices of others who may not possess the same solid grounding. And that is when the costly detours begin to mount. They might elect to readily follow someone else's lead, but without fully realizing it, they've inadvertently stepped off the well-worn path that once steadfastly kept them on track. Over the passage of time, they may even completely forget that the far superior path they once intuitively recognized even existed at all. The sobering truth is that they often won't fully comprehend the profound impact you had on their lives until they've already ventured too far down the wrong path to readily turn back. Only then does the painful realization fully dawn on them that the profound clarity they once enjoyed wasn't something they organically cultivated for themselves. It was in essence something they unwittingly borrowed from you, and without you there to implicitly guide them, they are ultimately forced to confront the harsh reality that the carefully followed map they relied so heavily upon was never genuinely theirs to claim as their own. Number 9. You were the invisible mediator who consistently shielded them from the harsher consequences of their actions. You were constantly operating diligently in the background, diligently preventing problems before they had the opportunity to fully manifest. Your sage advice, whether it took the form of a subtle warning, a gentle nudge, or an unwavering articulation of the unvarnished truth, consistently prevented people from walking headlong into situations that would have ultimately proven disastrous for them. You possessed an uncanny ability to anticipate trouble long before it even registered on their radar, and without making a grand spectacle of your intervention, you deftly redirected their actions, softened the inevitable blow, or skillfully guided them toward a demonstrably better course of action. Most of the time, they remained blissfully unaware of just how close they had come to experiencing genuine disaster because you skillfully managed to diffuse the situation before it ever became fully visible. Upon your sudden disappearance, that crucial safety net is irrevocably gone. The subtle adjustments you used to make so effortlessly are conspicuously absent. As a result, problems that once would have been deftly avoided now hit them head-on with full force. The critical mistakes they once effortlessly sidestepped now become harsh realities. The prescient warnings they had once instinctively heeded are replaced with an unsettling silence, and they only recognize the looming danger after it's far too late to effectively react. So there you have it. The profound truth is this: you, the quiet pillar, the unseen translator, the unwavering anchor, the energetic heartbeat. You are more vital than you could ever imagine. Your absence creates a ripple effect, revealing the delicate balance you tirelessly maintained, often without any recognition. You are a force for good, a silent guardian, and your impact resonates far beyond what anyone can see. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Does this resonate with you? Have you ever felt like this unsung hero? Or perhaps you've realized how much you relied on someone like this in your own life. Share your stories, ask your questions, and let's start a conversation in the comments below. And if you found this insightful, inspiring, or just plain helpful, please hit that subscribe button. I'll be delving into more topics like this, exploring the unseen forces that shape our world and reminding you of your own incredible power. Don't miss out on future videos. Let's continue this journey together. 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 Together.